Hey everyone, welcome to the Particle Accelerator podcast, where we talk to future thinking business leaders about how to grow and accelerate their business. I'm here with Beth today. Beth, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Beth Walker Cavalli. I am the CTO of a brand new startup called The Verse. I have a considerable technology background, I guess you would say, which gives me some expertise from the start of cloud environments all the way through to current day emerging technologies. My focus with The Verse right now is we are bridging into the blockchain Web3 technology arena and how we're going to support that. And I can talk about that in a bit. But I have over 12 years in blockchain. European banks contacted me in a previous position, and we installed blockchain to replace their legacy systems for over 12 years. It was exciting, but it also opened an entire new world for me as someone who started out as a network engineer to move into this kind of a community. So it's great to be here.
Awesome, thank you. So we'll start with our lightning round. We're just going to get to know you a little bit. What was your first job?
Oh, my first job. Is that before I left college or after I left college?
Your first job, the first thing you did for money.
The first thing I ever did for money?
Yep.
Oh gosh, I started out as an administrative assistant. It was the first thing I ever did for money.
Awesome.
Which is a long call, but I had to work through my college years. So that's how I did it.
Yeah, you know, a couple of guests were OG paper boys like me, so we all start somewhere. So
you want to hear about me milking cows, did you?
well, now you told me, you got to finish the story.
Oh gosh, I used to live where I grew up in. Actually, in central New York. Anybody who lives up that way or grew up that way will know exactly where I mean. It was, a long way from the big cities. And so we had farming and we had, lots of outdoors. It's a beautiful part of the country. Mm-hmm. If anybody can get to central New York, I highly recommend it. So one of my jobs, one summer, one of my first jobs was walking half a mile or mile and a half or so down to a local farm. And I started out my day by milking cows. And then at the middle part of my day, I helped inside the house, cleaning, taking care of things, tidying up, anything that they needed to do. And then I did the evening milking, and then I went home. And that was it. Oh, no, it was not.
That's great.
Work. Every time I've bought a carton of milk, I smile and I remember those days.
Yeah, you appreciate that. That's great. So that's great. So from from milking cows to executive assistant to now what you're doing now, that's phenomenal. What toy or hobby did you have as a child that inspired what you do for a career today?
A toy or a hobby that inspires what I do today. Oh, wow. I guess it would be an Etch-a-Sketch.
That's cool.
Well, for those who don't know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, red frame around a sand platform with magnetized particles in it. And what happened is you used two knobs, I guess is the best way to put it, or, changeable objects at the bottom. And you basically shook it to start over. But what you created along the way by manipulating the magnetics was creating beautiful pictures. And you can create anything with an Etch-a-Sketch. You can create the view of a circuit board. You can, draw something that's flowers. You can write, Happy Mother's Day on it. You can do anything with an Etch-a-Sketch. It's one of those things that it's one of those really primary tools, but really very intelligent tool that could make anything. And that influenced a lot of, wow, I can do anything. I don't have to choose one way or another. I can choose whatever I want.
Yeah, that's really cool. I remember one of my first programming experiences was with a logo, or maybe I think they pronounce it logos, just to be right. Yeah. but it was the idea of a triangle turtle that could draw pixel lines, and it was basically like an etch a sketch, but on the computer. You could say, forward 100, left turn 90, forward 100, left turn 90. You did that you did that the line and the turn 4 times, and you'd form a square.
Square. That's right.
And yeah, and kind of like the digital version of the Etch a Sketch, and that was kind of one of the first ideas of programming. Is like, hey, if you can control this X and Y axis and draw, you can do really cool things on a computer.
Yeah. The only other toy or experience that I had that formulated or kind of pushed me to where I want to go, it's one of my first computer games, which is called Zork. Now, if you remember Zork in any method, if anybody remembers Zork, it's all words. There was no visuals. It was walk toward the mailbox or walk 5 feet, or, and you had to type it all in. So that really, gave me an expectation of, oh my gosh, I have to think in smaller steps. I have to imagine what I really want to do at the end of this. I have to envision this.
Yeah.
And so from my perspective, it was the ideal, because again, it was another way for me to say that I didn't have to do things one way. I could really envision, computer systems or flower beds or whatever I wanted to focus on. Totally. It was really great.
That's awesome. What quote from a famous person lives in your mind rent free?
Oh, wow. There's 2 that absolutely have been pivotal for me. One is Eleanor Roosevelt, and I cannot remember the quote exactly, but it is a quote about, being the best you can be, don't allow other people to intimidate you to do what you want to do. I'm quite sure I can probably pull it out of my head by the end of our discussion, but it's one of those. The other one is by Campbell. And I think he is probably most well known right now by his link to George Lucas and his hero's story and arc. And his was, you must let go of the past in order to accept what is waiting for you. And in my personal life and in my business life, I've had to do both. I've had to do it over and over and over again. Is you work for some place for a very long time, and then you have to let go because it's time for you to experience something new. And if you don't let go, you'll be dragged through that experience forever. And so what Campbell was writing is that, as you go through the arc of life, you have to let go to wait for the great things that are coming in front of you. I spent 9 years working for Xerox Corporation out of Rochester, New York, and Stamford, Connecticut. I probably would have allowed them to drag me for many years. It was a great experience, and I loved every minute of it. So that would have been wonderful, but I knew that there was something else, and something had come to me, and I knew. That quote came into my mind immediately, and it was like, nope, it's time to let go. It's time to take that step, be the fool, take that step of the next part of the arc of life and move forward.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I know the Eleanor Roosevelt also has a quote that I really like, which is do one thing every day that scares you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
She's a great source of some inspirational quotes.
Oh, she's amazing. The other thing that's a pawn off of that family members have told me is, do one thing every day that scares your family. And it's just one of those things where you really have to take that leap of faith, whether it's a new business or whether it's a new project at home or whether it's the idea of, I don't know what's going to happen after this. Well, absolutely. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow morning. But if we don't take that step, and we have all the tools and we have the belief in it, it's the time to go.
Yeah, I think culturally there's a lot of pursuit of comfort, and what we're hearing from from people before us is more of a realization that suffering, discomfort is kind of the common human condition, and with less modern convenience, that was more apparent to people who'd come before us. Like they knew that suffering was kind of a constant across people, something that will happen.
Right.
but then, when we're seeking comfort, we miss out on the kind of the benefits from the uncomfortable, the
Yeah.
delayed gratification that comes from a little bit of pain and suffering. And I find that most successful people make they make decisions not based on comfort, but on the result or the outcome that comes from some discomfort and from some suffering.
Yeah. We can see that in the greatest generation. The greatest generation took on the greatest risk. They went to war, and they did it, it was a world war. So they really, by doing so, gave us the benefits we have today and the ability to make those advantages and changes. But they also got the best reward. They came home to freedom, nothing, their sacrifices in many ways left the rest of us with that appreciation that we should take advantage of things every single day because we don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a great thing.
Yeah. What was your favorite and least favorite course in college?
Oh Lord. Oh, um, my least favorite course in college was and like integral calculus. It was just horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to remember any of those days. It's one of those things where I knew and I still know that there are people who are much better at mathematics and calculus and quantum computing and even coding than I will ever be. And it was one of the places where I realized that immediately was, nope, I'm really not that great at this. I will work really hard at it to pass this course and understand it and use it in the future. But I know this is not drawing me. And yet I've met people who use algebra to balance their checkbook. It's one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get along with them very well usually, but so the other thing my favorite course was actually an economics course because it showed me the value of balancing the technology versus what the market wanted and how that relationship would make me identify things that I wanted to do in the future and how we were looking at what to choose as the next project for my co-founder and I. So as we look at projects and things we want to incorporate in a current platform, then absolutely that is something that was so eye-opening about how the markets work, how we really should select what we're doing, and how to get the end result that we're looking for. Or are we too soon? Or are we too late? From that perspective. So yeah, economics was fun.
Cool. So that's a good segue into our main round of questions here. What tech trends significantly impacted your industry, and how did you how has your company responded?
Oh, well, that's very good because the technology advances that have impacted us the most right now are two. One is very basic, which is in Web3 technology. Of course, it is platform is based on blockchain and the use of blockchain. And we're talking about Web3. We're not talking about Web2. Web2 is more isolated silos and has a different model for making money. But in Web3, where we work, it is all about owning your own data, rewrite, own being the optimal identity. And with blockchain, we give that ability. AI doesn't have a part in this, but blockchain is the main really technology item or layer that really has made a huge difference in whether we moved into this part. And the second question was?
No, I mean mainly that was it. Like just how has your company responded? Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about
the response to that is the creation of the verse and what we're working on today. My co-founder and I looked at, what is happening, where do we want to focus? And because of blockchain, it gives us the ability to do these things and to do them in spatial computing, which is even better. If anyone has had the opportunity to look at a Apple Vision Pro headset commercial. I mean, that's us. That is what we build for, and that is one of the opportunities you can use to use our software and the environment that we're building. So spatial computing and spatial.io, which is another really great location to go out and see different spatial environments, those are the things that have really rocket launched us to what we're doing today. And the availability of not necessarily only using AR and VR, but also the ability to use spatial computing on a regular monitor, laptop, mobile, phone, whatever you deem, for whatever purpose, which is far beyond gaming. We have the ability to marketplace something, buy and sell, look at things in 3D that you want to purchase, let's say like sneakers. Also the ability to have a community effort as well. So
Yeah, that's cool. I was just hearing about Grand Theft Auto 6. They've already spent like a couple $1 billion building the game. And they're talking about every building is going to be enterable, and like every building will be like you can enter every building. It's not just you're running around on the street. You can walk into buildings and they'll all have scenes and sets and interactability.
Yeah. Unity and Matrix platform is what they've been building that on, and from my understanding, and it's what we are using as well. And that particular environment, the creation in those environments, allows you to do amazing things. I am quite sad to hear that they're spending billions, but that is their choice, and they have them to spend with those other versions of that game. It is an incredibly popular game, incredibly violent game, but incredibly popular.
Yeah, I think the content creation, the modeling, the use of AI to accelerate that is kind of the changing paradigm. And so we do VR with a safety company. We're partnered with Next Wave Safety, and so we're we're the team that creates these VR experiences that they're doing safety training. The amount of content that we need to create in a given safety training video is pretty light. So a lot of these budgets, at least my my understanding is, a lot of these budgets are just for the digital content creation and the making an expanded world that's not just the same zone repeated over and over again, but a complete cityscape. I think folks may not be aware of how time consuming and how much effort it is to create these worlds. And it sounds like that's where a lot of the money has gone, especially with a standard of like every building will be enterable and unique, right? That's a lot. That's a big aspiration.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. And AI will only improve on some of the automated coding and predictive analytics of that. It'd be great.
Yeah, cool. What are 3 technology innovations you're betting on to drive your business growth?
Oh, this is going to be interesting. I'm the 3 technologies. I guess I would say technologies. Blockchain, AI, and spatial computing I would give as basic technologies. But I'm also counting on something else, which may be very unusual. And I'm counting on the failure of Web 2. I'm counting on the inability of Web 2 to meet the amazing demand for people with the advent of AI who are looking at, how do I trust anything anymore? And how do I control my data? The controlling of data is so important, especially as we move forward in all aspects. So I'm a huge believer in read, write, own. Emphasis on the own. Right now, when we use a Web 2 platform, we don't have those. We only have we get on the platform for free, but we are no longer able to control who sees what we do, when we do it, how we do it, what we spend, that kind of thing, or how much time we spend shopping. kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh,
So I
no.
think that a lot of pulling a lot of that back into Web3 will really be exciting and will eliminate people from making money off of us instead of we actually, using a product or
Mhm.
being.
Yeah. So help. So some of the CTOs or CEOs that are listening to my channel, they don't necessarily connect with some of this. You and I are both from a deep digital world. And so let's make this a little more like blockchain and web, the difference between Web3
Okay.
and Web2. Like, how do we make that super understandable?
Okay. The easiest way I can do is to go back to the definition of the internet or the web. Okay. The definition for Web 1 is to just read. And that was the beginnings of the internet where you just logged on and all you were able to do is read the articles. You weren't able to do anything else. You weren't able to like or none of that was available. All you could do was read what the professors or the other, knowledge-based institutions that had put out papers were putting all on the internet.
Yeah, as a
And
virtual library, you could go. Oh,
it was.
you go to
That was
you
it.
go to the internet. You put in your address. You're really just accessing a digital book with web pages, and you're reading those web pages.
Absolutely. I remember hearing a woman called Diana Galbadon, and she was, I think she still is, professor in Arizona or New Mexico. But she also used the web to put the first few chapters of one of her most popular fiction books out to be tested by her friends. And she used Just Right, which was very interesting. Now, if you don't know anything about her book series, it's called the Outlander book series, and it's now on Stars as a major television program that is viewed around the world. It's incredibly popular. But she used just the read function of Web 2.0 to send out those snippets and get feedback from people in other ways. Web 2 is what we have currently today in its most basic fashion. It is a platform or application that you can sign on to. You don't pay anything, but the cost that you give is what happens on that platform and the data that is scraped from it and how that is sold to other people by your activity level. That is the methodology behind it. The technology is very basic. It is usually AWS platform with, a very basic word looking to make it as simple as possible platform. Easy type and structure. I mean, it's nothing there. It's like sending multiple texts at different levels. That's the only way I can explain it as low as I can. The technology
Yeah.
stream. Yeah, it is. It's like sending multiple texts to all these different platforms. Now we're going to move into something that's a little bit more complicated. Is Web3. Web3 is the next level up where you are using spatial computing. Spatial computing is more of a visual effect where you would be more like a gaming environment where you would walk into something, or it can be much more like Apple Vision Pro where you are, even if you don't wear the headset portion of Apple Vision Pro, you will be looking at a screen and it will be more three-dimensional where it moves and shifts in front of you, or you can make it move and shift to what you want to see. It doesn't mean that you will not have beautiful screens and sets and all of that. It is multifunctional, but it does not have the fixed parameters of a Web 2. You are able to move screens, sets, sections, all where you would like it to go. The next part of Web3 that's very interesting is that the layers within Web3, the technology itself, is blockchain oriented majority of the time. There are very few that are not. And what happens in the blockchain level, of course, is the way we store our data. It's not stored in a silo or a traditional database structures that we have in Web 2. It is on this multifunctional and multi-required multi, how can I best say this?
One example that I've heard is, imagine in Web 2, you're selling an item in Shopify. And so you're selling an item. It's, everybody's very familiar with e-commerce in this Web 2 world where, okay, I see that you've gotten really good at a particular new brand of shorts, right? Like, exercise shorts or something. So you go and you market that to your Web 2 social media outlet, which are really just still read pages, just more nicely designed. And you say, okay, I want to buy those shorts. And then you make the money for those shorts. You're responsible to provide those to the customer. But then you have all this accounting you have to do within your silo, to use your language, where now you have to go pay for the supplier of those shorts. And then you're responsible for you've already paid out for the marketing. So you're paying yourself back for that. You have to make sure there's margin. You're doing all these things. In a Web3 transaction, you could have more dynamic partnerships where perhaps the supply chain is included already. So when that transaction is actually made, the participants in that transaction could be the closest thing we have to this is like an Uber transaction where the driver is paid at the same time as Uber is making the money. Like multiple parties are getting this. So I know that's a rough example.
The simplest example that I probably would give is that using blockchain in an individual transaction. Okay, let's use your shorts purchase example. Okay, in order for me I'm going to select the shorts. Okay, and then I'm going to say that I want to pay for them. Okay, when I go through the payment of the transaction, when I hit submit, okay, what happens is that a transmission data set is sent to, let's use the example of a wheel. And it's sent to the center of this wheel. And it has to go out and confirm with to the end of each of the spokes of the wheel before it can say, yes, we'll make that change, or we will approve that transaction. And then what will happen is it will return to the center of the wheel, and then it will send the signal back to the front, and it will come to your screen and it will say, money has been sent, transaction is approved. And then the other information that you were alluding to is the supply chain information that goes out, which is, this is the transactions that's been sent, this is how much it is, this is the location we want it sent to. All of those are sent back as well, and they all have to confirm. It's multiple confirmation for your transaction, so nobody can go in and make a change and it goes to your neighbor's house instead of yours. Mm-hmm. Or it gets billed to your mother instead of getting billed to you. Those kind of things. So it really is a multi-point confirmation system, or ledger, if you will, for not only money, but for the logistics as well. It really runs on one or two things that are brand new, which I am so excited about because I've just started using them, which are zero knowledge proofs as well. And zero knowledge proofs in this situation go out to the blockchain ledger and they make the request of, does this person have enough money for this purchase? How much is the purchase? Is this confirming the right location? Have they made this purchase before? Do we need to do a credit check on them? Let's say it's a very large purchase. Then what will happen in zero knowledge proofs is that normally in something like an EFT transaction, or and I can describe that a little bit more detail for those who are not into or familiar with EFT. In an EFT transaction, it sends back a whole bunch of data, which is who you are, what your social security number is, what your bank number is, and all of these pieces of information. In a zero knowledge proof, all we do is send back yes or no, because that information is private. They don't need to know all of that other data information unless they are using something different. Their bank account number may be very different from their credit digital credit card number or just their regular credit card number.
Mhm.
So that's one particular idea about the supply chain and the zero knowledge proof, which I'm super excited about because it really does fit into Web3 read, write, own. Nobody's getting extra data about you to scrape in another part of the internet. Now, if let's go back to what we were just talking about with EFT transactions, everyone I can understand or know that has been to a grocery store or a department store or even to an ATM machine has done an EFT transaction. And it's really easy. If you go to the grocery store, is if you are using a debit card or a credit card to pay for your food, that is when your EFT transaction takes place. From the little strip on the card, which sends information of this is how much money I have in my bank account, this is how much my bank refers me to, this is how much my purchase is, I give approval for that. It all is that stream of data. Now that's protected. We may send the information of this is my bank account, remove that money from it. But with a zero knowledge proof, we're protecting the information coming back and being part of the internet. Whether you use your credit card. Currently, let's use Sephora as an example. If I make a purchase on Sephora for a piece of, some beauty item, or, even if it's a loofah sponge. I mean, what we have when we make that purchase is an EFT transaction that we're just simulating almost from the inside of their system. But it still will be a credit card or debit card. It will still be that kind of information. But with zero knowledge proofs, they're not going to be able to share that data with anybody anymore. It's just between me and them, and that's it. Unless I give them permission, I would never advise anyone to give permission about their
Right.
data,
That's
especially
cool.
their banking data. Okay, sorry if that.
No, that was great. That was great. It's an extra layer of encapsulation of the transaction itself using blockchain with zero knowledge proof as a way of explaining the wrapper around the transaction. Whereas now
Absolutely.
we're just these brands are fully seeing the interaction between the credit card swipe and the financial institutions. What are the most significant gaps between your digital ambitions and the realities of today?
The biggest gap I think right now is just exposure. There are two things that are helping greatly right now with exposure of Web3 platforms and the ability to have people recognize them and maybe want to use them. The number one thing that's really helping is Frank McCourt. Now, Frank McCourt is primarily used to own part of the LA Dodgers, and his real estate business is really what has made him. But he has taken on the banner of promoting Web3 and promoting the idea of read, write, own your own data. And so with his exposure, working with the European Union, working with specialized people here in America, partnering with him is something that I'm looking forward to doing, because that will only eliminate or break down a lot of the barriers of why people aren't leaving and using Web 2 and using our technology. We are a creator empowerment technology. Creator is a very large word if used in the right way. It doesn't have to be a creator that is only a influencer. Creators are artists, designers, engineers, PR people who are moms at home who draw or paint or just want to have community events and are social bridge builders. Creators are people who want to put something out into the world. So if you use that definition of a creator empowerment technologies are ones that support that for the future. And we are that. And so I see McCourt's drive as something I'm really ready for to really help what's going on, because the purpose behind that is that people just don't see anything to go to right now. And between Reddit and the influencers of YouTube and Instagram, who are very tired of uploading to 5 different platforms and doing all of that, That is what we provide them with. We provide them with an aggregated solution, which means that they'll go out there and they'll do one cut, and then they'll chop up what they want to do all their platforms, select their platforms, and then we post it out through the APIs. They don't have to do all that uploading time. They don't have to do larger amounts of different things. If they want to edit on ours, great. If they want to edit on something that they love that they've been using for 20 years, great. We'll let them do that as well. But, all of the Web2 platforms, APIs are available to be used. They don't want to lose interaction with anybody. But we have the caveat of saying, but we're holding your data encrypted. So when you send it out there to activate all of those affiliate links or all the different ways that you stream and make money, our platform is going to be the one who's going to enable you to do that, keep your data, and build toward the future, because we provide you with a lot more.
Yeah, that's awesome. What how can you speak to the idea of connecting your technology roadmap to your business strategy? Like, what kinds of things are on your roadmap, and how have you connected those to your overall business strategy?
Well, I think that the roadmap basically right now, once you get past an MVP, your roadmap is integral and, kind of integrally wrapped or linked to your business strategy, because the only two things that are important, although many people would say the concepts and the engineer and the flash of someone like an Elon Musk, that's great. But the two things that people in the world want to know is, one, how does it work? What does it do for me? And the second one is, how does it make money? How are we going to make money? How do investors make money? Why is this on here on the earth? And the roadmap that we have is that in Web 2, you are the product. You don't pay a fee to use a platform. In Web 3, because you own your own data, there will be a small fee. For people who maybe are on the poverty line, whether it be in the United States or around the world, we don't see a reason to charge them fees. We think that is cruel, because that eliminates them from the social link of existing in today's world. Do you really think that we would be able to do all of the things we do without a phone? Not even a smartphone, but a phone and a computer and an internet link? Very few of our lives would be the same as they were 5 years ago without them. We wouldn't be able to do our jobs. Many people would just really be cut off from the social fabric of the world. So when we look at what we are doing, we are having nominal fees. We give options of how you make money, whether it be a token drop, whether it be a membership within your community, whether it's selling product and services, whether it's if you're a nonprofit or you're a business or a town or a state, and you want to participate doing the same things that you do on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on YouTube, promoting what your city, town, country, state does, and getting those tourists to come, or communicating with people in a town hall situation, all of those kind of things. Those people, it's much more of a sliding scale participation based on what you want to do. So those are some of the things that we do.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great criteria that you've expressed for choosing like what you're going to put into the verse, and what those drivers are. What lessons have you learned from tech initiatives that failed to deliver expected value?
The things I've learned from failures or failing is it's best to fast fail. I love doing that because I know that everyone around me can shift very quickly and move forward. So fast failing has been something that I keep very close to my heart. The other thing that I have learned about things in the past, or things that I know to look out for much more now, is the ability to look at an investor or look at a co-founder and say, what are the things we're trying to achieve? not just the honorable things we're trying to achieve, but the things that this will actually do. Is this just another little app, or is this something that's going to make us have that better possibility of the future? Are we, what kind of a plane are we on? Because then we can really look at what is the expectation. Am I just making a little amp that has a dancing NFT on it, and it just is a fun toy for someone who is just starting to use, computers? You put your finger on the little dancing NFT, and we move it around the screen, and it's a mobility toy or tool for an autistic child. That's great. That's a wonderful thing. Is it going to make a lot of money? Probably not. Is it worthy to do? Absolutely. All of those kinds of things are kind of very, very worthy to do. When I look at what we're building at The Verse, I'm looking at what is missing from the market. What is missing from the market that I know I can monetize appropriately? I'm not gouging anybody for anything here. And I'm looking at, not only can I do it appropriately, what's going to make business sense for me and for the future? And how does that technology work to benefit those?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a complicated explanation, but it is an integration of not only a technical roadmap of how I'm matching technology with and intertwining the technology with what the business reason is. And the business reason is that people aren't making as much money or anywhere near the money they should be making in Web 2. And in Web 3, the added benefit of owning your own data makes it an ideal marketplace decision. Are we too far ahead of the market? Not if Mr. McCourt has his way. I think that partnering with him and others who look at, we're really tired. I mean, look at the Reddit block outages of last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, entire sections of Reddit just went totally black. The moderators took them all down. It was agreed upon with all the communities. They're angry. And even though they've gone IPO, I don't think it's gone away, because they're calling and reaching out to me, which is very complimentary. They're looking for a place to go.
Right.
The other thing that I would say is that not only the Reddit community, but the influencers are really upset when it comes to people who are making video content or audio content, having to chop it all up, and then having to upload it to all of these different platforms. Now, you have mentioned already that you upload to YouTube, but also that there's Instagram and, Mastodon. And I mean, we could go on and on and on to all of these different platforms. But what ends up happening is that people are spending an amazing amount of time, and yet those platforms and their algorithms, some people will never see some of that work. And therefore, then they don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
They don't get all those likes.
It sounds like your hypothesis, and you had mentioned this earlier, is that the Web3, the platform, the Web3 platform that comes out for creators, that allows creators to maintain artistical credit and license and ownership, rather than the Web 2 platform giving commission on advertising, is the next best thing. And so we'll see this somebody will launch that. Somebody will launch the platform that makes it creator friendly.
Well, that's us, actually. There are a lot of platforms right now that are coming out that totally give creators tools in order to have more control or set up their business. We're not into that. These are creators, well, although we will provide those things, but this is a larger platform, and that is exactly what we do. We create and have created this platform that works in Web3 that's going to will not rely on that previous model at all of having to get paid off of advertising or all of that. Although it is a very, very good way to do it, they will have more autonomy, they will have more ability and creativity control, but they'll also have the ability to continue to make that Web 2 money as long as they want to in an aggregated style from our platform, but they'll also be able to create new avenues for themselves from themselves.
That's really cool.
So, yeah, well, it's we're here, we're ready, and we're about to launch.
So
it's going to be a good ride.
That's awesome. How do you cultivate a culture of innovation and digital fluency as a senior leader? Just talk about how you build your culture of innovation.
Well, the idea is number one is to listen. I mean, there's a very easy structure or kind of almost forgotten structure of listening. Listening is super important. People talk at each other. I think it was Deborah Tannenbaum many years ago wrote a book that's called You Just Don't Understand. And it talks about how men and women sometimes just don't listen to each other and what's being said. The other thing is not only being there to listen, but being open to listen to new ideas or new directions or new concepts. I don't think I would have been involved in blockchain if I had not, over 13 years ago, listened to somebody who was actually in a meeting having a presentation, but not on blockchain. They were talking about banking institutions and the changes. Then in the back of the conversation was a gentleman from Credit Suisse who messaged me and said, "We're looking at blockchain. What do you know about it?" I mean, if I hadn't listened or answered that email or all of those things, part of my whole career would never have come forward. So, yeah, it's listening. It really is.
Yeah, there's a short book that I was recommended by a guy, Michael Sorensen, called "I Hear You," and its subtitle is "The Surprisingly Simple Skill Behind Extraordinary Relationships," and really talking about this primary drive, this almost primitive drive that we have to be heard, and there's some in that book. There's some really good practical tips that when I first started doing it seemed a little a little weird or a little but then as I realized that people really seek validation in the being heard, that there's this primitive need to just be validated, be heard, and then only once that happens can actually like good balanced discourse. And that goes right along with what you're saying about being talked at rather than being validated and heard. Doesn't mean you have to agree, just means that the other person wants to make sure that they're in the hearing, they're also validated as a person who's putting in effort to communicating, being vulnerable.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to be a CISO for a short amount of time. And one of the things that I had to do was to listen, because that environment was not only filled with incredible risk, it was also filled with incredible knowledge. And I never would have received half of that knowledge if I had just used it as a part-time thought process of just be patient, just listen to them, and then go on and do what you want to do. It doesn't work that way. All of the knowledge that staff will bring to you or will have, you'll never know it if you don't listen. And I love my teams to the point where, an engineering team will call me. I have to talk about, telling my co-founder or my CEO at the time, my engineering team is calling me. Can I call you back in 5 minutes? And they were very confused at that. They were like, I don't understand. What, they can wait. And I said, no, they are the ones who make your vision, your direction, and your success of meeting all of those accomplishments or roadmap ticks for the next 2 years. If they've got a problem enough to call the CTO or to call the CISO, then it's a problem that I should take a few minutes and I will get back to you. I can talk to you at 9:00 tonight. I can talk to you at 7:00 tonight. I can do all that. They, I hope, are at home in bed with their families, focusing on other things so they come back fresh in the morning to handle the next thing.
Yeah.
So I think one of the big successful things and the most incredible things I have loved about working with engineering teams is the idea that they would call and I would listen and I would learn so much from them. But also it made my decision making so much easier because I could see the vision between why engineering perspectives, applied and how I could describe back to them as well of the business reason why we were asking it to be done in the first place. Right. Sometimes engineering teams don't hear that. It's a huge it's a huge thing for me and my success. I would never have become a CTO without listening. It's great.
Awesome. You do something very naturally that that most people do not do, and I highly appreciate it as a podcast host. You speak from shared experience. You're not giving advice. There is advice embedded in your shared experience. Is there somewhere that you learned that? Because that's a rare trait.
I would think there were a couple experiences where I learned how to share personal experience. One was my family. I think that I have had some of the best experience with family and how we experience things together. To not be too personal, I don't want to give away too much. I am the youngest of five. Being the youngest of five, you get to see everything about family life, and your mom and dad and how they relate to others, how you relate to multiple personalities within one household. Although we were spaced out quite a bit, it's one of those things where you learn how to talk to everybody and then share experiences, and then have that ability to talk to each other.
Yeah,
I think family in that perspective is huge. Now, I can also say that I was the youngest of five, but I also had many siblings, but I also was an only child for a very long time because my next sibling is 9 years older than I am. So that gives me perspective as well as, okay, that's a lot of alone experiences or different kind of growing up experiences as well.
Yeah. I find people don't like to be should on. And a lot of times when I ask these questions, people they'll give the advice. They'll should on people. They're like, well, you should, and you should, and you're not doing that, but very naturally. And there's actually the Gestalt principle, which is a psychology principle around speaking from shared experience rather than advice. And so I it's rare to find that, and you're really good at it. What is something that you would say? Maybe it's another shared experience, but what is something that you would say to somebody just starting their journey? Whether it's starting their journey building a digital platform or whether it's starting their career, what's something that you would focus on if you were just beginning your journey?
Make sure that you are grounded. Make sure that you are prepared. I would start with, if you're starting a technology platform or a small company or a startup, ground yourself in the security and knowledge of who you are and your values. Know what you're approaching. I remember a friend of mine who started a very small software application in Silicon Valley, 1980s. Each of the three partners of the firm took $30,000 and they put it into the pool, and they decided no vacations for a year, and they grounded themselves in backing each other up when they got sick and how they were going to walk out with what they wanted to do. Their successful exit was all based on how they were approaching it. It really was.
Cool.
I find that is something that I would definitely give advice about. The other thing I would give advice about, starting from a personal nature of starting your career out, is to ground yourself not only in ethics and values, but also ground yourself in that you can, like the Etch-a-Sketch example, you can do anything. Learn as much as you can about what you want to do. I would take advice with a grain of salt. There are going to be someone out there that's always going to tell you, they did for me, you can never do that. You'll never be good enough. What's a woman doing in that world? How could you ever think that you were going to be there? Women will be screaming and yelling at the screen if they watch this podcast. They will know exactly what I mean. Sure. But when you look at who you are from a person, personal value, and your knowledge in technology, what education and what tools you have, I guess it would come back to the phrase that my father many, many years ago told me. He told me that you can lose everything in life. You can lose all the money, all the objects, all the clothes, all the accoutrements of life, right? But the one thing that no one can take away from you is your knowledge, your education, and the tools that you have available to you. And that was one of the things that drove me on at the beginning of my career. When I started at Xerox, it was one of those things that I need to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, understand how the world works. I'm a small town girl, and I walked into a Fortune 300 company, and I had to learn, luckily my parents instilled in me quite good manners. So that was something I didn't have to deal with. But it was also of, what is the role that people play? And what is your role? And how can you gain that knowledge and then make your way towards your goals? When it doesn't have to be a CTO, it can be the goal of, I just want to be at a director position in HR. I want to be a VP of, design in an Apple corporation. That would be pretty lofty. But it's one of those things where that's what I would give as advice, based on my experiences, and don't stop believing in what you want to do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if people have enjoyed the conversation, they'd like to continue it with you, how should they get in touch with you?
I can be reached at my email address, which I think you will graciously post for them.
For sure.
They can contact me there. They can also contact me through our website at theversesocialclub.com.
theversesocialclub.com. Okay, great. Well,
I'm also on LinkedIn. And if they can find me there, that would be great.
All right, cool. We'll put those links in the show notes. Well, it's been great chatting with you. We really appreciate this exploration into Web3 and all the things you got going on with spatial computing. And it's been an exciting conversation. We just thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.